My questions to the Treasurer. Treasurer, after plundering high conservation value forests at public expense for the past 13 years, Taran yesterday walked away from its Huon mill. Instead, it will consolidate at Smithton, closer to the tall eucalypt and rainforest carbon sinks of the Tarkine, where the plunder will not only continue, it will accelerate. Treasurer, over the journey, this Malaysian timber giant has received an estimated $44 million in subsidies, including on your watch. Can you confirm that despite your 2014 election pledge to end the subsidies to the logging industry, today's budget will continue the funnelling of public money into propping up the native forest logging industry? Will you also confirm the clear evidence that this industry cannot survive without public subsidies? Indeed, as Taran demonstrates, it can barely survive even with them.
Thank you. The Honourable the Premier.
Madam Speaker, I thank Ms O'Connor, Leader of the Greens, Member for Clark, for that question and her interest in this matter. Madam Speaker, let me be very clear about this. The single most damaging matter that has affected the native forest industry was the disastrous Labor Green government back in 2010 to 2014.
And yet yesterday you were talking about our positive climate profile.
Order, please.
Madam Speaker,
You hypocrite.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, what the Greens did then was to leverage their role in cabinet to hold the Labor government to a position where right across regional Tasmania there were jobs lost.
Starting
there
in
were
2006.
businesses lost, where children had to sit in lounge rooms with their parents.
Order. Now, we had this same behaviour yesterday, and I'm going to urge the Greens. I fully understand your passion and your commitment, but you do not have the right to scream over everybody else. And before you stand up, you are screaming.
I am not.
Well, you are raising your voice in a very loud and unnecessary fashion.
This is gendered language.
Please do not argue with me. I am pointing out that you have a right to your opinion, as does everyone else. Now, people heard your contribution in silence, and I ask that you hear the Treasurers in silence. And if you can't behave, you will not be allowed to stay in the chamber, because it is causing grief for everyone else. You are a passionate woman, I accept that, but you can't yell when it's not your turn.
Just on your ruling, Madam Speaker, all we ask, Dr Woodruff and I, is that your rulings are consistent. And repeatedly, in question time, Labor goes off and they don't get pulled up.
That's not a point of order. Please proceed.
Point of clarification,
Oh, goodness.
Speaker. I found it very hard to hear the Minister for Health's response last time because Labor members were shouting across the chamber. I just want to point out the fact that Labor members continually interject when other ministers are speaking. It is the standard practice of the House during question time for members to...
I have ruled. Please regain your seat. Tittle-tattling does not become you, and I do ask that Labor also behave for this duration. Thank you. Please proceed in a dignified manner. Not you, the House.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker.
And try telling the truth.
Okay. Warning 1.
Madam Speaker, the member for Clark just cannot help herself, to be frank. In terms of this place, on many occasions it has been described as being the right forum for a battle of ideas. Unfortunately, that's something that you have walked past. Sure. Absolutely walked past. Sure. Now, Madam Speaker, the point that I was making before I was so rudely interrupted was that under the Green Labor government back in 2010 to 2014, harm was inflicted upon families and on regional communities simply because of a desire to remain in government. Simply because of a desire to remain in government. The price that the Labor Party paid, and Tasmanians...
Speaker. Standing Order 45 relevance. The question related to the budget and also asked the Treasurer whether or not the subsidies to the native forest logging industry will continue. We don't want a false history.
Okay, you've been heard, but that's not a point of order. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam
False
Speaker.
history.
Madam Speaker, it is not a false history. The Labor Green government was propped up by you, and as a result of being propped up by you, what Labor did was turn its back on the regional communities of Tasmania. That's what they did. That's what they did. Yeah, and right around this state, there were businesses that were closing. There were people losing their jobs. There were kids sitting in lounge rooms with their parents, watching them lose everything. Watching them lose everything. And that was the price that you paid to remain in government. That's what was the price that was paid. Now, Madam Speaker, in terms of the native forest industry, I want to commend Sustainable Timber Tasmania, which under this government has returned a profit and is now providing dividends. Madam Speaker. That is the strength. That is the strength of the forest industry in Tasmania, Madam Speaker. And this government will not turn its back. Will not turn its back on those regional communities, Madam Speaker. Will not turn its back.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. 45 relevance. Could the Treasurer please confirm or not whether the subsidies to the native forest industry will continue?
So, can I have a point of order? You know that the rules of this House are that I cannot put words in the Treasurer's mouth, so that is not a point of order, and I ask the Treasurer to be relevant.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I was making the point very clearly, and it's obviously been lost on the member, that Sustainable Timber Tasmania has returned dividends in the last 3 years, Madam Speaker. In the last 3 years, Madam Speaker. Now, we will not turn our back on this industry. We will not turn our back on Tasmanians. We will not turn our back on Tasmanians in regional and rural communities, unlike Labor and unlike you. And unlike you, Madam Speaker, the sustainable timber Tasmania, Madam Speaker, and the industry will strongly be supported by this side of the House, Madam Speaker, because what it does, it provides jobs in regional Tasmania. It supports households in regional Tasmania, Madam Speaker, and it supports communities.
Thank you.